Hello and welcome. This is Gravitas. My name is Priyanka Sharma and here's our lineup for tonight. Who is a war hero? Is it someone who gives speeches, someone who is camera ready while bombs fall around him? Someone who poses for the covers of magazines basking in praise, begging for arms while his army fights on the battlefield? Is that really a war hero? No. This is what a war hero looks like. Tonight on Gravitas, I will introduce you to the real hero in the Ukraine war, a general who is training his army to fight the enemy, a general who is risking his life for his countrymen, a general who is hardly seen in front of a camera because he's too busy being on the front line. The real hero of the Ukraine war is not the president but a soldier, an army general, also on the show. The United Kingdom is in the throes of a housing crisis. The economy is flailing. The cost of living crisis is stifling. Is Brexit to blame? One of the biggest food chains in the world has been rocked by grave sexual abuse allegations. McDonald's is in the news not for its burgers. We'll tell you about the shocking claims. A new drug is offering fresh hope to Alzheimer's patients, but does it work? We'll find out. And China's young are burnt out and jobless, so they're quitting full-time jobs to become full-time children. If the young decide to stop working, what will happen to China? We'll discuss all this and more tonight on the show. Now we're starting the show with some breaking news coming in as of now. There has been a suicide blast in Peshawar. We are being told that the blast was near a security force vehicle. More reports coming in. Several people are said to have been injured. These are initial reports. We are also being told that the blast was orchestrated by an arm of the TTP. That's the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. This is breaking news coming in at this point. These details have just come in that there has been a suicide blast in Peshawar. We are also being told that this blast took place near a security force vehicle. Injuries have been reported. The reports also say that the blast was orchestrated by an arm of the TTP, that is the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. And now for more details, let's go straight to our Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik. He joins us live on this broadcast. Anas, thanks for joining us. What can you tell us about this blast in Peshawar?
Well, this blast has taken place. It's a suicide explosion that took place on a convoy of the Frontier Constabulary that was passing by from the Hayatabad Phase 6 area, it was a suicide bombing vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. And we can see that a car was following the truck, so it was meticulously planned. With that, the Tehreek-e-Jihad Pakistan has claimed the responsibility. The TJP is a consortium or an extension of the TTP. It's a consortium of Baloch terrorist organizations,
right,
and the TTP. That's what the TJP is. With that, the bigger problem, the bigger worry for Islamabad remains. Islamabad has been raising concerns time and again of what it believes is terror emanating from the Afghan soil. The Pakistani army chief had said it, then it was reiterated by the defense minister, and now we have Kabul and Islamabad talking about it. Tomorrow we have the special representative on Afghanistan, Asif Durrani, traveling from Islamabad.
Anas,
to
that
talk
brings
about
me to my
this
next question.
issue.
Actually, the timing of this blast is very crucial. This meeting that you just mentioned is supposed to take place between the officials from both sides. The TTP will be a sore subject. It has come into new weaponry. That's what sources are suggesting. So how will that feed into the discussions on the table?
Well, the weaponry bit is something which is quite of a pressing issue that was mentioned just yesterday in the Corps meeting, Corps commanders meeting as well of the military. In the statement, it mentioned publicly that the modern weaponry is quite of a cause of concern, and it is believed that the American weapons that were left behind are now in the hands of these terror outfits, including the TTP, which can cause unrest. So, by and large, when Asif Durrani heads to Kabul tomorrow for his 3-day visit, this will be that talking point, will be that point of concern which Islamabad would want to press, and whether or not the Afghan Taliban bulges on it, that remains to be seen. Because remember, the Afghan Taliban, the interim Afghan government have been playing textbook on the Pakistani admins. They've been maintaining plausible deniability, something that Islamabad had been doing to the West when the West was pressurizing Islamabad to let go of its support of the Taliban before the takeover in 2021 August. Priyanka.
Anas, thanks for those details. We'll come back to you for more as the story unfolds. Let's go back to our focus on Gravitas tonight. I have a question for you. When I say Ukraine or the Ukraine war, what picture do you have in your mind? This. I'm not surprised, because so far the Ukraine war has had only one face, that of the president, Volodymyr Zelensky. He, in his now trademark military green t-shirt, has dominated the discourse. Also sucked in all the oxygen in the room. He is the face of Ukraine's resistance. And Ukraine is him. Really? Is Zelensky truly the hero of Ukraine? I don't think so. The real hero is on the battlefield, doing the real fighting. Tonight we bring you the story of Ukraine's authentic hero, the man who is fighting the war for Ukraine so that Zelensky can pose for Vogue, travel the world, steal the limelight, and stamp himself as the face of bravery. Meet General Alexander Syrsky, the man on the front line. He leads Ukraine's ground forces. It was under Syrsky's leadership that Ukraine had a successful counter-offensive last year. Also, plans to pull off a repeat this year. Syrsky is 58 years old and is said to be an obsessive planner. Analysts say his battle tactics reflect his rigorous Soviet training. Syrsky trained at the Higher Military Command School in Moscow alongside men who are now Russian commanders, which is likely the reason why he knows better than most how to break Russian ranks and its defense. Syrsky was born in Soviet Union in a city called Vladimir. He has lived in Ukraine since 1980. In 2019, he became the head of Ukraine's land forces. In the lead up to February 2022, when the Russian troops were being mobilized near the border, the Ukrainian general told his troops to remove military hardware from the bases, so that the arms could be saved from airstrikes should a war break out. Well, a war did break out, and we all know that the first fires came from the skies. Day one of the war was all about airstrikes on Ukraine's strategic locations. Syrsky's prediction was right. Also, when Volodymyr Zelensky was playing down the risk of an attack on Kyiv, General Syrsky was actually preparing for the calamity. It was on his instruction that 2 layers of defense were created around Kyiv. He positioned generals at the borders, ensured they were authorized to make tactical decisions. When Russian troops began marching towards Kyiv, a dam in Irpin was blown up. This flooded Russian positions. Ukraine then blew up Russia's pontoon bridge. These moves were crucial because they prevented Russian troops from getting close to Kyiv. And it was General Syrsky who led Ukraine's counter-offensive last year. He was the mastermind behind Ukraine's surprise counterattack on Kharkiv. It was him who ensured that Ukrainian troops held on to Bakhmut for as long as they possibly could. It was also Syrsky who raised Ukraine's flag in the liberated town of Balaklia. What's he doing now? He's working towards retaking Bakhmut. He sleeps just 4.5 hours at night, and the only break he takes is to go to the gym. As Zelensky stands in front of the cameras and on podiums, it is Ukraine's authentic hero who is in touch with Ukraine's ground and military reality. He recently told journalists that Ukraine's counter-offensive is going slower than many had hoped. He's right. But that has not stopped Syrsky from boosting the morale of the Ukrainian troops. He cheers them on daily. He visits them on the ground, on the battlefield, reads their messages. Syrsky is Ukraine's real hero. And you know what? People know this. Syrsky has become extremely popular in Ukraine. Then why is it that you've never heard of him before? Because the Ukraine war has been dominated by one face alone, Zelensky. He's everywhere. From your TV screens to headlines to every big global event, you name it and he's there. From the Arab League summit, the NATO summit, to even the Grammys, the World Bank, the World Economic Forum and the Venice Film Festival, Zelensky has appeared everywhere, soaking in the praise, basking in the comments about his wartime leadership. There aren't many Western parliaments that he hasn't addressed. Let me name them now: the EU Parliament, the British Parliament, the French Parliament, the Parliament of Canada, the German Parliament, the Italian Parliament, the parliaments of the Netherlands, Australia, Belgium, Spain, Ireland, Cyprus, Finland, South Korea, even the Israeli Knesset. Yes, it's a long list. And this is not even half of it. At every speech, Zelensky has tailored his message to fit the audience. Clever. At the US Congress, he invoked the attack on Pearl Harbor, also 9/11, urging the US to send arms to help defend democracy. He quoted William Shakespeare and Winston Churchill while addressing the British leaders, moved the French by recalling Verdun, where the French repelled an assault by Germany during World War I. You see, this is what he is good at. The man is an entertainer turned president. He knows how to act, how to move the audience, which camera to turn to, how to make that face that becomes the face of war. And the West is hands in glove in oiling Zelensky's PR machinery. Because you see, two heroes never make a good story. Like I said, General Syrsky has become extremely popular since the start of the war, so much so that many of Zelensky's allies are apparently worried that Syrsky could pose a political threat to the president. In fact, one report claims that last summer there were some powerful insiders in Ukraine who believed that Syrsky should replace Zelensky. Not shocking, given that Zelensky hasn't really been able to secure what people want, and that's peace. They don't want lectures or arms caches. They want peace, and Zelensky has failed to deliver that. Question is, will Syrsky be able to? Zelensky is trying to play his cards right, or he is being trained to do so by the West that is worried about the possibilities of cracks of disunity. So last year, Syrsky was made a hero of Ukraine, which is the country's highest honor. Recently, he told The Economist, the army is outside of politics. But for how long? The real hero always gets his day in the sun to shine, doesn't he? Well, that's the hope. Let's now turn to the United States. Last week, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the country. A week on, it has taken a major decision to boost bilateral ties. Last night, a repatriation ceremony was held at the Indian consulate in New York. Like the name suggests, this ceremony was about the repatriation of 105 trafficked antiquities back to India. They were handed over to the Indian ambassador, Taranjeet Singh Sandhu. They will now be transported to India soon. Speaking on the occasion, the Indian ambassador thanked the American side for its cooperation and support. He noted how for the people of India, these artifacts are not just pieces of art, but also a part of their living heritage and culture. How? According to officials, these antiquities represent a wide geographical spread in terms of their origin in India. Around 50 of them have a religious significance for Hindus, Jains and Muslims. The rest are of cultural significance. These objects span a period of 1600 years, from the 1st century BC to the 15th century AD. They hold significant historical and market value, even as their exact worth has not been ascertained yet. So what exactly are these items? Well, there's a terracotta Yakshi plaque belonging to the 1st century BC, which was stolen from eastern India. A red sandstone dancing Ganesha from the 9th century with its provenance in central India, and several other valuable items and objects in mediums such as marble, terracotta and sandstone. Most of these were smuggled abroad illegally through a jailed antique dealer. Reports say that once these objects reach home to India, they will be kept in the custody of the Archaeological Survey of India until it is decided whether they should be repatriated to the respective states from where they were originally taken. Like I said, this handover follows Prime Minister Modi's historic state visit to the US. During the visit, India and the US had agreed to work on a cultural property agreement. Now, this would help prevent illegal trafficking of cultural artifacts. Such an understanding is expected to further add value to the dynamic bilateral collaboration between Homeland Security and law enforcement agencies of the two sides. Speaking about this decision, Prime Minister Modi said, and I'm quoting, "I'm happy that the American government has decided to return more than 100 antiquities of India that were stolen from us. These antiquities had reached the international markets. I express my gratitude to the American government for this." Remember, back in May, the Indian government had revealed that nearly 240 antiquities have been brought back to India since 2014. From 1974 to 2014, only 13 such antiquities were retrieved. And now the US has returned 105 more. This is a major diplomatic win for the Indian government. For the last 9 years, it has made consistent efforts to bring stolen artifacts back home. These efforts are slowly but certainly bearing fruit. When I say burgers and fries, which brand comes to mind? It's probably McDonald's. But today, one of the biggest food chains in the world is facing the heat. McDonald's restaurants in the United Kingdom are facing sexual abuse claims. A BBC investigation has revealed some alarming details. In the last 5 months, more than 100 McDonald's staffers have spoken out against the fast food chain. Some say they were sexually assaulted. Others were sexually abused. Some fell prey to racism and homophobia. Girls as young as 17 were groped and harassed almost routinely. Let me tell you about some of the details. They are disturbing to say the least. A 17-year-old employee alleges she was harassed by a colleague 20 years older. She said that the abuser fired racial slurs at her, even talked about showing her his private parts. He said he wanted to make a black and white baby with her. Another 17-year-old was choked and groped by a senior manager. Another shift manager sent her sexually explicit image. It's almost like managers at McDonald's are drunk on power. The allegations are serious. Sexual favors demanded in exchange for vapes. It gets uglier. There's more. What I'm about to tell you will sound like something straight out of a boys' locker room. Another allegation. Some male managers and crew members at McDonald's joked about putting cash bets on which of them could have relations with a new recruit first. Can you imagine the horror? A girl walks into a new workplace, possibly her first one ever, and falls prey to such offensive bets. What impact will it have on her long term? From what the employees have alleged, racist jokes were also the norm. Indians were made fun of for their accent. Pakistanis are called terrorists. Jews face anti-Semitic abuse. Young women are constantly judged for how they look. Allegedly, those considered attractive are stationed at the cash counter to appeal to customers. What does McDonald's have to say for itself? It has one of the youngest workforces in the UK. Some 75% of its employees are aged between 16 and 25. For many, it is their first job. Many of the women who have spoken up were only in their teenage years. A majority of them have complained to their managers or seniors, but their complaints were dismissed. They were not even heard. No action was taken. What about those whose managers were the abusers? Who did they turn to? Who could they turn to? McDonald's is admitting that it has fallen short of expectations. Its chief executive for UK and Ireland, Alistair McCrow, says, and I quote, "There were clearly instances where we have fallen short, and for that we deeply apologize. There is simply no place for harassment, abuse or discrimination of any kind at McDonald's, and we will investigate all allegations brought to us." But here's my problem. This farce has been going on for a while now. For years, McDonald's employees have been coming out to speak. The fast food joint has been trying to save face, making tall claims and woke statements. Case in point, 2018. International Women's Day, McDonald's in California turned the golden arches of its logo upside down to become W. It did the same across all its digital channels. The W was supposed to honor women. The same women who were allegedly being harassed and abused in McDonald's kitchens. Earlier this year in February, the fast food giant signed a legally binding agreement with the UK Equality and Human Rights Commission. In this agreement, it pledged to protect its staff from sexual harassment. McDonald's even had the audacity to say, and I quote, "We already have a strong track record in this area." Does it? The investigation has shown otherwise clearly. If we speak in numbers, 78 employees were sexually harassed, 31 were sexually assaulted. There were 18 allegations of racism, while 6 people accused McDonald's of homophobia. These figures are just from the last 5 months, imagine that, and just from the United Kingdom. This is one of the UK's largest private sector employer we are talking about. More than 170,000 people work in 1,450 McDonald's restaurants. But of what use is that if the fast food giant cannot take responsibility? If it cannot ensure a safe working environment for its employees? If it cannot take complaints against sexual abuse and racism seriously? Why do managers at McDonald's feel so entitled? There has to be something wrong with the system. This is the reality behind the cheery red and yellow colors of McDonald's. We hope the fast food chain, the giant, takes some action, and soon, instead of making these statements and doing PR. Now, in the UK, amid citizens being crushed by skyrocketing prices, a survey shows that Britons are now calling Brexit a mistake. Polls show that 55% people say that they want to rejoin the European Union. In May, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said that Brexit is delivering benefits, but polls show a completely different picture. Will Brexit prove fatal for Britain? Our next report shows you the complete picture. Take a look.
The United Kingdom is facing the heat from its own citizens. Britons have had enough. They're sick of being trampled on by the financial crisis. An annual poll was conducted to ask people how they feel about Brexit. This year's survey also surprised the pollsters. A survey by YouGov shows that 57% Britons are against the Brexit move, and at least 55% voted to rejoin the European Union. Nearly 63% people see Brexit to be more of a failure than a success. Let us remind you, this comes after Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announced that Brexit is delivering benefits. He cited the policy of free ports and VAT cuts, which he said would make beer cheaper. Are citizens really concerned about the price of beer right now? Where did Britain go wrong with the Brexit move? Let's tell you what the former leader of the UK Independence Party, Nigel Farage, had to say. Farage promised that Brexit would be a boon, but now he himself says that it was a big mistake. This should not come as a surprise. You see, Brexit deterred businesses from investing in the United Kingdom. This was one of the major hits to the economy. Britain is in the grips of a cost of living crisis. Millions can no longer afford what they once thought of as basics. Thousands of businesses have urged the government to renegotiate the Brexit deal. Experts say the post-Brexit landscape has made commercial life infinitely harder. But it's not only the numbers. Officials said that a hit to the GDP would be worth it as long as Brexit fulfilled their promises. What were these promises? The most cherished one was a reduction in the number of immigrants. But the reality shows a completely different picture. In 2022, net migration in the United Kingdom hit a record high of 606,000. Sunak said that the legal immigration levels were too high. The government is also battling record levels of asylum claims from migrants. But the UK is still inviting foreign workers as it is falling short of labourers. The government has relaxed visa restrictions for a number of sectors. But why is this happening? You see, EU citizens aren't allowed to work in the UK without a visa due to Brexit. Many workers returned home during the COVID-19 pandemic. This caused major vacancies in the workforce in the United Kingdom. The government has made a shortage occupations list to help fill vacancies. Experts say that the damage caused by Brexit may keep piling up. The more people quit their jobs, the worse the economy gets. This will lead to higher interest rates, which will squeeze incomes. This will ultimately make the protests louder and citizens angrier. Will the government realize the wounds caused by Brexit? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Moving on, reports say that the Church of England school is teaching children about white privilege. The school has also defended its teachings and said that a child should not wait until he or she is 18 to learn about racial justice. Critics have called the lessons as being explicitly politically partisan. So is the school trying to give children a reality check of the past? How will the teachers justify their new teachings? Take a look.
A Church of England school is teaching children about racial justice. What does the school mean by racial justice? It simply intends to teach children that they have white privilege. Critics have called it a controversial teaching of race theory. A campaign group called Don't Divide Us has called a lesson on the white supremacy pyramid as explicitly politically partisan. So what's the school's response? Why is the school teaching so-called racial justice? The Chief Education Officer, Canon Nigel Genders, says that teaching racial justice in schools has never been more important. Nigel says that the school is teaching the enduring impact of slavery and the reality of institutional and systemic racism. He says, and I quote, "In Church of England schools, we are committed to addressing the issue, not by building up some people at the expense of others or by suggesting children are personally responsible for past injustices. Rather, we must face our past and by doing so, build a more just society for all." The teaching guidance states that pupils should learn about the white supremacy pyramid. Why? To show how stereotypes and prejudices can lead to racist words and action. Critics have called out the school's teachings on people of color. They've asked questions like, should a person get attention solely because of their skin color, or should they be judged on the amount of effort they put into their work? In response to the criticism, the church says, and I quote, "We're driven by our identity in Christ and that desire to really teach that all people are equal in the eyes of God, and we want to make sure that everyone has that equal opportunity, and we'll continue to develop resources we are passionate about developing." Does religion justify the school's curriculum? Are critics going too far with their judgment of the teaching pattern? Reports say England is already helping balance racial disparities. State primary schools are inviting children of color for extra Saturday lessons. This is to improve their reading and writing skills on black fiction and non-fiction authors. Officials say that although the provision is especially for children of color, white children can also opt for it if they wish to.
Yesterday on the show, I told you about China's economy, the dismal job market, rising youth unemployment. Today, I want to go beyond the statistics and tell you how such an economic crisis impacts the people. Guess what the young are doing in China? They're quitting full-time jobs to become full-time children. It's a trend we spoke about earlier, and now for many Chinese youngsters, it's becoming a way of life. They're walking away from illustrious careers. They're saying no thank you to the glamour of big fat paychecks. They're throwing away years of expensive education to do what? To become full-time children. They're choosing to stay at home, wash dishes, run errands, and most importantly, take care of their parents. Well, most of us in India do that already, but we don't have to quit our jobs as a bargain. The young in China are battling a dual crisis. On one hand, a dismal job market is pouring cold water all over their dreams. On the other hand, the Chinese youth is burnt out. They would rather go back to the comforts of home than work long hours in the office. They would rather rely on their parents' money to get by than chase big salaries themselves. Yesterday, we told you how bad the unemployment crisis was. More than 1 in 5 in the 16 to 24 age group are jobless in China. Their dreams and desires have been dumped. This cohort of full-time children has reasons to return to the comforts of home. China's poor work-life balance is old news. And now its job market isn't as attractive as it once was. So the young are going back to their parents, asking for pocket money. In return, they perform basic household chores. There's more. Young graduates are disillusioned. Some are so defeated that they're failing their exams on purpose, just so that they can delay graduation. In fact, Chinese social media was flooded with images of graduates lying flat in their gowns. If this isn't a clear sign of how bad things are in China, I don't know what is. China's slower than expected economic recovery is to blame. It is being blamed for the high unemployment. Who else is to blame? The Chinese regime, its recent crackdown on its booming tech industry, has choked the job market. The Chinese leader continues to downplay the crisis. Xi Jinping is telling the young to eat bitterness. His advice: learn to cope with hardship. Well, the youth has responded by opting out of the workforce. The young in China are dejected, they feel trapped, and the Chinese regime should be worried. Because if the youth, the backbone of the economy, is burnt out or jobless, then who will work? Let's move on now to some good news. What would life be like without memories? I'm talking about people who suffer from dementia, Alzheimer's disease. We all know someone who has been diagnosed with this terrible disease. But now a new drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline. Our next report gives you all the details. Take a look.
Our lives are driven by memories. We learn from experiences and keep improving as we go forward. Let it be good or bad, memories help us build stronger relationships too. But what if you slowly start forgetting? Not remembering what you ate for breakfast may not be a major problem. But imagine forgetting your own name, not remembering the name of your family member, even forgetting how to talk to another person. This is a glimpse of what dementia can do to a person. Dementia is not one particular disease. It covers a wide range of specific medical conditions. Dementia can affect a person's memory, spoken language, problem solving, and other thinking abilities. The most prevalent type of dementia is the Alzheimer's disease. But a new drug called donanemab is now putting up a fight against Alzheimer's. Donanemab slows down the pace of the disease by at least 30%. It helps the patient retain more of their day-to-day lives and tasks. To put it simply, the new medicine clears a protein called amyloid that builds up in the brain. The slow build-up of amyloid is what affects the memory of a patient. Although the drug cannot cure Alzheimer's, experts say it marks a new era where Alzheimer's can be treated. So does the drug truly work? The son of a patient who took part in the global trial said, and I quote, "Seeing him struggle with processing information and solving problems was very hard, but I think the decline is reaching a plateau now." The patient says that he feels more confident every day. Although it's still unknown when the drug will be approved, it is already changing lives, one family at a time through trials. From famous sports persons to unforgettable actors, millions of people around the globe fall victim to dementia. Famous actor-comedian, the late Robin Williams, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. He was known to be the man who lived to spread joy and happiness through his art. One fine day, he succumbed to the disease. The worst part is, dementia creeps up on you without you realizing it. It starts with forgetting small things, like what outfit you wore earlier or what you ate for dinner last night. Then the disease slowly takes its toll, where the person forgets how to talk. This drug offers fresh hope to millions. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
We have told you this on Gravitas before. Japan has been struggling with a low birth rate. So have its neighbors, China and South Korea. The fertility rate has declined. It's like young couples just don't want to have kids. But things are different in this particular Japanese firm. It's called Itoshu Corp. The story began back in 2010. The company's new CEO decided to shake things up. What was his motive? To boost productivity. What did he do to achieve it? The CEO banned working in office after 8 p.m. Working overtime was out of question, except on rare occasions. HR and security guards scouted the office building. Anyone found stuck to their desks was asked to leave. They were welcome to come in early the next day and get paid for the extra hours. Sounds like a dream. What did this do for the company? The profits skyrocketed fivefold. While that is well and good, that's not why I'm telling you this story today. The CEO's decision had a rather unusual side benefit. It led to a baby boom in the office. The office records showed that more female employees took maternity leave and had their kids and then came back to work happy. Since 2010, the fertility rate among the full-time employees doubled, and by the end of the fiscal year 2022, it reached almost 2 children per every female employee. And do you know what Japan's current national fertility rate is? You'll be surprised. It is 1.3. Who would have thought that a simple change in working hours would affect an employee's life so drastically? Take a look. You see, Japan is known for its intense work culture. Grueling work hours are often followed by evenings of eating, drinking and networking with colleagues. Work-life balance goes for a toss, leaving little scope for family planning. For the longest time, ambitious women have been blamed for this declining birth rate. They have been called selfish, overly ambitious or influenced by the West. But are they really the culprit? Were the women at Itochu Corp not ambitious enough? I highly doubt it. The answer is simple. The working hours made all the difference. At other Japanese companies, getting pregnant might effectively mark the end of a woman's career. But at this particular firm, the employees returned after having their babies. On top of the curtailed working hours, the company also set up a daycare center near its office. It became easier for mothers to juggle their jobs while looking after their kids. After the pandemic, employees were also given the option to work from home 2 days a week. Last year, it further cut core office hours from 8 to 6. Employees could punch out as early as 3 p.m. New parents got more time with their families. Work stress was low. Employees were not stretched too thin, and the company enjoyed higher profits. It was a win-win situation. Maybe Japan should take a lesson from this firm itself. The country's birth rate has been plummeting. So much so that Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has called it a national crisis. Japan may experience an 11 million worker shortfall by 2040. It's no joke. It also faces the risk of a collapse in pension and healthcare system. All of it because the Japanese couples don't want to have kids. And as I told you, it's not just Japan. South Korea and China are also in the same boat. South Korea has had the world's lowest birth rate for years. It dipped to 0.78 in 2022, sparking concerns. Most South Korean women drop out of the workforce between the ages of 25 and 39. Those are the golden years of their career. They also happen to be their most fertile years. So what does this drop indicate? That South Korea seriously lacks in childcare facilities. Maybe that's why women are reluctant to have babies, and those who do so are forced to bid farewell to their career for good. It's no secret, Asian economies thrive on punishing an unsupportive corporate culture, and it has shown its effects on the youth's unwillingness to have children. China's population also shrank for the first time in 6 decades. You might already know about China's 996 system. For the unversed, Chinese employees work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. Hence, the name 996. Amid this, when are people going to find time to have kids? Can you really pin the blame on women? For years, everyone has been conveniently doing that. But now, maybe we need to change the way we think. Itochu Corp CEO did exactly that. Maybe your boss should consider doing the same as well.